Due to digital technology and the internet, we are now living in a world that is more connected than ever before. While enjoying the convenience and efficiency of innovation, safety in the digital domain has caused increasing concerns. From personal information to a national election, all could be threatened and influenced simply by a computer. So how do we safeguard the security of cyberspace? What is the way to build a mechanism that provides protection to all? And how can nations work together for a better and safer digital world? To discuss these and other issues, I'm very glad to sit down with Mr. Bruce McConnell. He's the Global Vice President at the East-West Institute. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Welcome to Dialogue, sir. What do you think of the theme of this conference, which is to build mutual trust and collective governance towards a community of shared future? The issue is, are we able to share a future?
We share a future whether we like it or not, don't we? So the question is, do we share a peaceful future in which we're collaborating and cooperating with each other in mutual trust?
Here is the chronic issue of a security dilemma between the two countries, and therefore mistrust has shaped up and taken root in the heart and mind of politicians on both sides. And therefore, do you think in this rule-based world, China needs to do more to reflect upon what we have done? Or do you think it's the rise of populism in the United States and likewise unilateralism that should take the blame?
Well, I think there's a difference between blame and responsibility, right? So I think both parties need to take responsibility for their own actions and need to approach the relationship from a sense of humility and curiosity. Unfortunately, although curiosity is a very American trait, humility not so much. And so I think we have to, both sides have to recognize the cultural characteristics of the other and accept that and figure out ways to work together. So on the American side, like some other Western countries, there is a reversion backwards away from internationalism, globalism, to a nationalistic approach. And that is damaging to overall global stability. So that is part of the problem. We could discuss the reasons for that. They're domestic political reasons. In China, there is this, in my opinion, a kind of schizophrenia, if you will. It has one foot in the world of being a developing country. And on the other hand, it is, at the same time, another foot into becoming a leading country and standing tall and powerful on the global stage.
Let's return to the topic of something you're good at, cybersecurity. You were a senior expert with the Homeland Security Department following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So let us know your concerns about online security. In the cyberspace, we vow to build a community of shared future. However, we are facing a lot of challenges such as virus, piracy, organized crimes, terrorism, alleged meddling with domestic politics, so on and so forth. You can raise a number of issues that we must be very serious with. Now, what do you think is the most scary threat for both sides?
Well, as we said when I was at Homeland Security, cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. So there are many players who must do things in order to achieve a safe and a stable and secure cyberspace. But I think there are two big dangers in cyberspace right now. The first is that, in general, people don't take it very seriously. Individuals don't protect their systems. They're careless with their information. Companies build technology and sell it to the public and to other companies without good security in it. Governments don't invest enough in protecting their systems. So we must take this much more seriously to defend our systems and make sure they are protected. The other problem, of course, comes from the side of the attacks. They come from many places, from amateurs who can get strong attack tools. You can buy strong attack tools on the internet. from criminals who use the technology to steal money from banks or hold other organizations ransom and get ransom money from them, and then, of course, from governments. And I actually think that at the moment, governments are not playing a very constructive role in securing cyberspace.
One of the issues, I'm afraid, is it's difficult. It used to be difficult to tell differences between a state actor or a non-state cell in organizing and launching unilateral attacks against the state player. With the advancement of the state-of-the-art technology today, do you think it's a lot easier to tell the difference?
Yeah. This is the problem, as we say, of attribution. Who is behind the attack?
Attribution.
Correct, because it's easy to hide behind other countries and make it look like it comes from one place and when it really comes from someplace else. So, for example, when there was an attack on Sony Pictures, the North Koreans who were responsible for that attack, in part of their attack, they captured servers in China and made it appear that some of the attacks were coming from China. China was not happy about this activity, and when the U.S. brought it to their attention, they corrected this problem. But I think today it is getting much easier to tell who is behind attack, but it's not instantaneous. You can't tell immediately. It takes days or even a few weeks to do all the analysis and become confident about who is behind it.
What do you think of the allegation that the smartphone of President Trump may have been bugged, eavesdropped by the Chinese government? The response from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Madam Hua Chunying, said, you better use Huawei if you don't trust your own iPhone. So what do you think of this joke?
I like this joke for a different reason, which is that the Americans think that American phones are more secure, and the Chinese think that Chinese technology is more secure, but there is no such thing as American phones or Chinese phones. The iPhone, for example, is manufactured with parts from 20 countries. So all the supply for information technology is global, and we can no longer pretend that there is national technology. This is part of the trade problem that we are facing.
After the British government raised concerns about Huawei, the company agreed to build a British cybersecurity testing center where the code for all British Huawei products is poked and prodded by the nation's intelligence agency, GCHQ. So do you think by doing that, it is easier and a big relief for the UK government to accept more of the Huawei products in the British market as a result?
I think that is a very interesting case, because you are absolutely right. The British government thoroughly tested for 2 years all of Huawei's products that were going into the, these are not little phones, these are big switches that go into the core infrastructure that switch phone calls all over England. But they did not find any problems, and where they found problems, Huawei made corrections to address those. I think that was a very constructive approach, and other countries, including China and the US, should take that kind of approach when looking at each other's technologies, not just banning them because they are from some other country.
What do you think of the revelations by Edward Snowden in terms of cybersecurity?
Well, I must say that when I was at the Department of Homeland Security, I was in many conversations, official conversations, with the Chinese government about cybersecurity, and there was a big change in those conversations, in the tone of those conversations after the Snowden revelations, because the Americans had always taken the position that you guys are spying on us, but we don't spy on you. And then the public information came out, and it changed the dynamic very much. So while obviously what Snowden did was a criminal action, and he should be prosecuted for that, in some ways I think it leveled the playing field in terms of candor and honesty in conversations.
Now, Bruce, following the event of Edward Snowden, allies of the United States were wondering aloud why they had been spied on.
There was a political response in the public, and there was the realpolitik response of we are still allies, we have to work together. So I think that's exactly what happened, and eventually I think some of the transatlantic relationship has been repaired, but other things have happened since then. So it was definitely a bad day for the transatlantic partnership.
Let's look at the concerns of individuals in the age of cybersecurity. We all want to protect our own private data. We all want to protect our own privacy. We don't want our secrets to be known or to be made public through the use of the internet. Following 9/11, all American individuals were required to cooperate with the Homeland Security and other agencies of the U.S. government to protect them by exposing their own individual data to the Homeland Security.
I think Americans do not trust government very much. So there were no changes in policy that required people to cooperate and no changes that required people to share data. So that's a misperception. But I do think that the question of privacy is an interesting one. I think privacy is a 200-year concept. So back when our ancestors were alive, they lived in villages. There was no privacy. There is no privacy in a small village. People know what you're doing, where you're going, who you are talking to, who you are flirting with. There is nothing called privacy. It was only with the rise of cities and large towns that people could become anonymous and have privacy. And this lasted for a period, I don't know, 200-300 years. And I think now with the technology, we are going back to a place where people will know what you're doing. So we will miss those days. But I think there is a difference. In the village, it was your people who knew whether you liked it or not. It was a small group of people. Now, it is very, very large organizations that know all about you. In China, it's the state. In the West, it's companies. But it's the same kind of thing. You don't have any privacy from the surveillance of these large organizations. Traditionally, in industry, you get concentration. Right? You have concentration, for example, in the telecommunications industry, you had concentration in the United States, and eventually the government had to come in and break up the big companies because it's anti-competitive. They become monopolies. So I think with some of the big platforms, it's not time yet, but at some point there may need to be some kind of breakup action by the government and increased regulation of these companies. I like to use the analogy of the airline industry. So you fly around, I know, quite a bit. You cannot get on an airplane without proving who you are. Not only that, the air pilot has a license, the plane has been inspected, all the people who are servicing the plane have had background investigations. Cyberspace is much more important in terms of its economic and social and political impact than the airline industry. But we've got none of that. None of that security. Anybody can put a computer up and anybody can sell a computer, and there are no driver's licenses on the internet. So we have a long way to go to mature this industry.
Thank you so much. You are watching Dialogue with Mr. Bruce McConnell, Vice President of the East-West Institute. We are talking about cybersecurity in this digital world. And in our second half, I shall be joined by Mr. Yan Shui-Cheng. He is the Vice President of 360 and the Director of 360 AI Institute. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome to Dialogue.
Thank you.
As an expert in the area of artificial intelligence, do you think China qualifies or overqualifies for being part of the game in laying out the rules?
When we discuss or talk about artificial intelligence, we will talk about two aspects. So one aspect is application layer. Another layer actually is fundamental theory. Yeah, because the fundamental theory is a foundation. Based on the foundation, then you can develop the different applications. I think China has good opportunity for the application layer. As what mentioned many times in the conference, that China has the A-level AI scientists and has the A+ level of the big data. The big data is a fuel for the artificial intelligence. And also, when you have the application, so means you will accumulate more real data from the applications. Then this positive cycle can ensure that the AI algorithm can be developed better and better, and the application can be better and better. So from this perspective, because China, the market is so huge, and
we have 800 million population of netizens.
Yes, and frankly speaking, China is more open for the new, for example, applications. Yeah, so it's like first you try and see whether this can be really effective and valuable. And if it is really valuable, but we notice that there are certain concerns, for example, privacy or some other issues, and then the government will stand out and then give the guidance on how to solve this kind of problem. So from this perspective, I think it will be better for China compared with other countries. Yeah. So for application side, I think China can do much, much better.
But I'm afraid in your understatement of the analysis, you showed your serious concerns somehow about the distance between 0 and 1. That means a lot for the very innovation itself, for the very creation itself. In this particular area, between 0 and 1, I think, and I believe most people agree with me, the United States is way ahead of us.
Yes, right.
In the information industry. Do you think we're going to make any breakthroughs in the forthcoming, in the next 5 years or 10 years, since you praise China for having such A-class, A-level scientists and a sizable market for consuming digital technology? How do you foresee the possibility that we're going to change our old track record of doing nothing, basically, between 0 and 1?
Frankly speaking, at the current stage, China is still not so strong in the fundamental research, especially for this kind of things from 0 to 1. And the main reason, I think, is the culture. The culture, for example, in school, we actually were taught that we should listen to the teacher. We should follow the advice of the seniors and the parents, right? And actually, the main target in school is to get a high score in the examination. It is not actually the innovation or creative minds, right, in the early stage of the study or education. So this culture means that we should learn. The learn is the foundation. Creation is not the major thing in school. So it means when we come to the job market, for example, to a company, then we need to face the real situation. For example, use your knowledge to produce certain new products, right? So it means the creation or innovation perspective, because we were not trained in school, so it means it is not so easy for us to suddenly have this kind of capability to have the innovation. Yeah. So that's why actually currently for many successful companies in China, the situation is that, as many people mentioned, is that we copy certain actually styles or other companies, the style to China, so it means copy to China. And then, because the sizable market in China,
we've been the copycat for years.
Yes.
Instead of creating something, we buy things easily to generate a quick revenue, quick money. But taking Huawei as an example, Mr. Ren Zhengfei seems to be a maverick, a very nice maverick, good example in pouring so much money into the R&D area. Do you think this indicates the healthy trend for the digital technology in China?
Firstly, this is it's good sign. For example, for Huawei-style companies, actually they can, for example, put one direction from the strategic point of view, and so means they do not pursue the short-term return, they pursue the long-term return. This is good. But I think if we expect to solve this problem from the fundamental level, the best way that we can encourage this kind of style in the education system. Yeah, so means, for example, final venue for the college entrance examination, maybe not only the examination score will be taken into consideration. For example, your performance from other aspects can be taken into consideration in the college entrance examination. I think this may be will be very useful. Just like the Olympic, this kind of competition, right? Because sometimes this was considered for the college entrance examination, then a lot of people will consider this, right? But if you consider, for example, innovation, creation as an important factor, and then a lot of people will actually follow this style. So it means if say that for companies, they pursue the long-term return, this is good, but this cannot solve the problem thoroughly. Yeah.
Regarding copyright, so long as I'm concerned, that many more Chinese scholars, if not scientists, are writing academic papers. Number of patent applications promises to outnumber our competitors in our neighboring countries, Japan, South Korea, United States, across the Pacific Ocean. But what do you think of the quality of those papers? Personally, I believe more is less, or the other way around is true. Less is more.
Yes.
However, what happens truly concerns you and me. What do you think of this issue?
First, because I'm from the academia, let's check, for example, the current situation for the papers in the artificial intelligence area. I still remember when I was a PhD student, for one top conference, maybe the submission number is only about 500. But now, the submission number actually will reach more than 6,000. Yeah. So I mean, at that time, for example, if one researcher can publish 5 papers in one conference, this actually will be a big event. A lot of people actually will talk about this person. But now the situation is that if for one team, the leader cannot publish, for example, 5 papers in one top conference, he or she will not come out to talk about actually the achievement in this conference. But the real situation is that for one people, your time is fixed, right? You still only have 24 hours. You will not have more time because of the artificial intelligence, right? So it means the speed to produce a good paper actually will again be the same. Yeah, so it means that for one paper, your effort put in actually will be much less. So it means the quality will be much lower compared with before.
Quality declines.
Yeah, declines. Yeah, it's right. For patents, I think China, definitely there are some very good patents. Yeah, but at the same time, sometimes the reason to file a patent for one company, it is not really that we expect this patent can help protect the company in certain area. Actually, sometimes we need this patent, actually, for example, to protect ourselves when the company is issued by another company. So this is a major expectation, or the original actually expectation from the company. Yeah.
Let's go back to the issue of cybersecurity. What are the major challenges in the years ahead?
If you want to protect the internet from the red hat perspective, we need to protect 99.9999% of the possibilities. Yeah. But for black hat, they just need to find one point or one situation, and then they can hack, and then they can destroy something. Yeah, this is the major issue. So it means we call this as asymmetry. Asymmetry means what? Means we, for example, in United States, the Verizon will provide a so-called data, a report, and this report will report, for example, if one black hat, they expect to, for example, do some attack. Averagely, only about a few seconds, they can attacked a website or a certain place. But for the white hat, if they expect to find out or discover that the system has been attacked, they need sometimes months. Yeah, this is one thing. Another thing that artificial intelligence can be utilized not just by the white hat, so means like a company like a 360. This can also be utilized by the black hat. And because of this, so means you need much more and more this kind of white hats to protect the internet attack or security. Yeah, so means the number of this kind of white hat is not enough. We need artificial intelligence system to help these people to protect their cybersecurity.
With the massive deployment of CCTV cameras, to have increasingly capable facial recognition technology, do you think in China we basically have lost the sense of privacy?
Okay, well, this is a very good question. I think we can actually understand or talk about this topic from two aspects. So one aspect is that mostly when one camera is installed somewhere, there will be a sign somewhere to tell you that this area has been surveillance, right? So means the people, when you enter this area, you know that you have been monitored, yeah. Means in the surveillance system. This is one aspect. Another aspect, the privacy will be a big issue or concern for many people. The best way to solve this problem can come from two aspects. So one aspect is the data for training. We call as the inference process. So means you install the real camera and then we'll do the facial recognition in real time, right? So currently in academic area, there is one type of research which is considering have the AI training system which can train the deep learning model just like the normal training system. But at the same time, there is a mechanism to ensure that the original raw data will not be seen directly by the training algorithm. So means the privacy can be preserved, but the training of the artificial system can still ongoing. Yeah, so this may be a good way to solve this problem, because if we have this kind of training system, so means what? So means we can use blockchain and such a training system to encourage the people to share their own private data, because the data will be used to train the AI system in a privacy preserved way. Yeah. Similarly, for the deploy of the real system, right, it's still possible that the data has been accessed, but actually the AI system does not know exactly what is the original data. Yeah. So the research is ongoing, but currently such a system is still computationally expensive. So it means you need to use more computation power to solve the problem. That's why the current system is still not so practical. So let's expect, for example, after some years, new progress can appear in this aspect. And for me, personally, I believe this is the best way to solve this kind of issue.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.